I'm Brady Duncan of Mad Tree Brewing, and this is the Brewer to Brewer podcast from All About Beer. My guest is Joe Short of Short's Brewery, and he is here for a conversation that goes beyond the brew house and into topics that matter to brewing professionals and curious beer drinkers. First, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at All About Beer. And to support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. We'll get into the conversation in just a moment, but first, this message.
Malteurop Malting Company is proud to introduce the new Malteurop, grown and malted in Mexico. At Malteurop, they're proud to be growing and producing malt in Mexico. They work hand in hand with Mexican farmers to ensure the best barley, which is then processed in their own local Mexico malt house to create this exceptional Malteurop. This product is a superior quality two-row base malt and provides consistent quality designed to satisfy your desire to brew a true Mexican lager. Contact Malteurop today and visit malteuropmaltingco.com. Next time you're going through your books, check and see how much you're paying for brewery software. Odds are you're paying way too much. Ollie is the fastest growing brewery software that is saving brewers time and money while delivering the tools they need to grow their business. Learn more at getollie.com/pod. That's getollie.com/pod.
Okay, so let's get into it. So a bit or a lot about my guest today. Joe Short is a thirsty man. If you could see him on screen right now, he just took a big gulp of beer right on cue. His lust for love, life, adventure, and beer are never satiated. He's the founder and creative engineer of Short's Brewing, a small independent brewing company in the far reaches of northern Michigan in a town of less than 1,000 people called Bel Air. If Evel Knievel, Willy Wonka, and Johnny Cash made a baby, it might resemble something similar to Joe Short, but with a killer mustache. Joe is just built different. He's a daredevil, a thrill seeker who does his own stunts. He water skis behind airplanes and isn't afraid to do full send on a vintage snowmobile, snowmobile, sorry. He chops holes through ice so he can swim all winter long. He showered in ranch dressing and ridden bikes through flames into crowds of beer guzzling festival goers. In his spare time, he's the front man for Braxton Hicks and the Contractions, a self-proclaimed malted Midwest country hopped indie folk rock supergroup that sings songs about beers and getting it on. Last winter, they embarked on a first of its kind tap takeover tour with beer and song pairings in 5 cities. All that to say, the weirder, the wilder, the better. The same can be said for the beers he brews. While tasty IPAs and chuggerific light lagers are the foundation of their portfolio, Shorts isn't afraid of getting weird. Beers like Pistachio Cream Ale, Bloody Beer, OMG WTF Barbecue, Summer Heat, and Snake Juice are just a taste of Short's products of passion that will turn any suburban home into a Willy Wonka freak fortress. But I love Freak Fortress. But beer is just the starting point. Joe Short crafts experiences from their Ween-inspired pub menu to their vibrant summer music series to hand-built bars made from scrap boats and old cars. It adds up to something honest and magical that draws thirsty pilgrims from around the globe to his corner of the universe. The experience, the beer, the shenanigans, it's just a part of his ethos, loving where you live and loving what you do. That's easier said done than right. Years of hard work and tenacity with support of his community and a nimble team of like-minded individuals have brought his dreams to life and his creations to the masses. Their scrappy nature and relentless innovation, what Joe calls the power of smallness, has made Shorts Michigan's #1 craft brewery. Hell yeah. And after 21 years in the business, Joe says he's just getting started. Without further ado, the man, the myth, the mustache, Mr. Joe Short. How are you, Joe?
I'm good, thanks. That was fun to hear somebody else read that.
Holy shit, what a bio. That's amazing.
It was actually whittled down quite a bit, so but it was fun. It was fun to write.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in. I think first, I guess I want to say why I wanted to talk with you. So as I was doing a little bit of research, and I know we've known each other over the years, and we did a collab years ago, I don't know, 6-ish years ago. I was watching an interview that you did leading into the Dean Ween show that you guys had at the pub maybe 8-ish years ago, 8 to 10 years ago.
It would have been 11 years ago.
11 years ago. And you said in the interview, and I quote, "I want to meet the rock star who has been inspiring me all these years." So I think reason number one why I wanted to talk to you, Joe, is you are the rock star that's been inspiring me, Mad Tree. I think a broad audience of people across the U.S. You guys have been doing it for a long time, and I think that was kind of reason number one why I wanted to talk to you. Kind of reason number two, and this kind of gets into maybe my first question, and I'm just going to jump right in. I think what's really fascinating is following you, meeting you. Every time I interact with you, you still got it, right? You're like this fountain of youth. Shorts is now 21 years old. Is that correct?
Yeah, at the end of the month, we turned 21.
Hell yeah. Congrats. It's awesome. Um, and this is an industry that, right, it can be tough on people. It eats some people up. Right. At times it can be a lot of travel. It can be a lot of drinking. It's constant innovation. It's new. It can be an exhausting industry. So I guess question number one is, after 21 years, what continues to drive this passion, and what is your secret to keep it fresh? Because I'll be honest, like talking with you, it seems like you've just opened the brewery like 6 months ago.
Man, it's a deep, loaded question.
Right off the bat.
Yeah, so as I get older, you start to think a little bit more intensely about playing the long game, and like you mentioned, there's a lot more wear and tear on the body and the mind. So I've been prioritizing more balance as far as health and wellness goes. So I
Yep.
do try to make exercise and eating right a priority to offset all the naughty things that I do.
Yep.
And then, just really enjoying the creative process. So again, as things start to age, and your role kind of becomes more of like, business minded, you're in charge of operating this brewery and fixing the big problems in the big picture, but you got to have projects that keep the wheels greased, and it's doing stuff like just going out on the middle of the lake and borrowing a snowblower and renting a concrete wet saw and spending an afternoon cutting ice blocks out of the lake. And honestly, this year it kicked my ass so hard because the ice blocks weighed anywhere between 75 and 150 pounds. And I moved them all like 4 times.
So what are you
But
doing? What are you doing with the ice blocks? Is this like just you out exercising, or does this have some fun purpose to it?
so yes, and yes. So the fun purpose is we were building a ice bar for the Winter Beer Festival.
Yep.
So presentation is obviously important to me, and doing something fun and in a way to, bring a whole world around the beer that you're trying to share with people. So Winter Beer Fest, historically, we've done some ice blocks, and this was a winter cold enough to actually have ice on the lake. So it leaned into that a little bit this year.
Yep.
But I guess to answer the question though, is like, you just got to be excited about some stuff. Admittedly, like this week leading up to the anniversary party, it's a lot more administrative, a lot more planning, and honestly, that's what's more fatiguing to me than anything. I prefer to be outside working on my feet, using tools, and
Yep.
getting all my steps in. That's really invigorating. So I guess staying active and working on stuff physically, building something with my hands, that's the kind of stuff that excites me. Um, Earlier this week was April Fool's Day, Monday. And last year we did a video that was super fun. It was about developing this new product called Midwest Gravy, which is essentially ranch that we were able to put on tap. But like that kind of fun, weird shit is really what keeps things fun,
Yep.
because there are the darker sides of things that, again, when you want to balance things out a little bit more, you got to have the fun with the not fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's like you got to have a little recess after your homework.
Yep. So what's you alluded to it a little bit. What's changed about kind of your role in the company over the last 21 years, or what's kind of been the big kind of shifts and stages? Or
Well, honestly, not much. More. It's for me. It's been just the experience of like understanding the nuances of how business works. Like I was
yep,
always kind of ignorant to the nuances of distribution and business planning, all that stuff, which was great because I had a great team. I have a great team around me that helps plan and prepare all that stuff. And me being ignorant to a lot of it or just not being interested in it is what helped me focus on having the fun stuff.
yep,
But I'm still the guy in charge ultimately, and so I just continue to ask more and more questions and try to learn more and more about why we get ourselves into situations we get ourselves into and what we can do to prevent them or develop the creative process is also developing high level strategy that sort of breaks the barriers and reinvents beer to some degree or changes the way things work in the market or consumer interest. So I think things get better with age a little bit. And I'd have to say that, as I get older and as I've been doing this longer, the fact that I'm paying more attention to, I guess, the economics side and trying to
yep,
tailor that into the creative side has been interesting and
yeah.
fun.
How do you think about balancing? I kind of asked this question. Maybe I'm gonna ask it a little bit a different way. And I'll get context for me. Um, I love the creative side. I think you're much better at it than I am, but I find myself, so we are 11-year-old craft brewery. I find myself now in a role of kind of like I really need to be the nurturer, and I'm not a great nurturer. I'm more of like I love to pursue creative passions and play music and come up with stupid ideas. How do you think about balancing kind of your got to nurture the business, run a responsible business versus like, I want to do the shit that's fun.
Um, yeah, that I think it just kind of fleshes itself, it plays itself out naturally because my role is honestly perfect for a guy with ADHD where like
Yep.
I get hyper focused on a few things until I get bored with it and then I move on to the next thing. So today might be like, you need to solve this problem now, or over the course of a few days, you need to solve this problem now. And then you solve that problem and then you're like, all right, what's next? Is it another fire to put out or is it something that we need to actually work on to develop our company and our brand? And so bouncing around from fires to fun, if that's a way you want to frame it, kind of just keeps me busy and distracted enough to not pay much attention to it, honestly.
Yeah. What's I kind of asked you what's changed in your role. What's changed the most with shorts over the last 21 years? And what's remained the same?
So it's changed the most. Uh, Man, well, so much. I think we're honestly still seeing some of the aftermath of what COVID did on the hospitality side,
Yep.
and so Lee and I became basically 100% more active on the hospitality side. So we, literally rebuilding the pub and the ethos and the quality and the service and the culture. That's been a huge transformation for us. But that said, in the same breath is like that's also what stays the same. Is like we're basically here being like, this is who we are. This is what we believe in. These are the standards that we set. We have a new team, or we're building new teams. We're we're rethinking about how we do things. What wasn't working well before, and how we can make that better after. And then dealing with the market changes and as I like to say, that the aging craft beer community where drinking culture has just changed, and so
Yep.
now we need to think about instead of making 100 beers a year, we're making like 36. that's changed quite a bit. But all of it is just a way for us to really continue to evaluate how and why we do what we do. But I'd like to believe that, having fun, being passionate, loving where you live, loving what you do, all that stuff is still very much part of the core of our company. And, people come and go all the time, but, the scary, sad truth of what we're seeing in the industry is that not all breweries are surviving right now.
Yep.
And so I'm encouraged with where we're at, although I'm cautiously optimistic about what the future holds as we see a transition in beer culture and economy, the state of the economy. So
Yep.
it's a lot of deep discussions to be had.
When you say the transition of beer culture, can you elaborate on that? Like, what do you? And I'm sure a lot of us are seeing it, but I'm curious, kind of your extrapolation of that.
Yeah, kids just don't want to party anymore, man. Like, why? I don't know. I mean, you think about, or I think about, times when I was like, just getting, starting to experiment with alcohol, right? Like you're
Yep.
a teenager, maybe it started in high school or college for some of us. And, with the way technology goes now, I observe these newer generations much differently than my own experience because
Yeah.
you see these memes where they're like, group texts in my day used to be just drinking a bunch of beer around a bonfire. And now, and it's kind of cool that, I'm not really worried about my kids, sneaking out and trying. I mean, they're still pretty young, but it just doesn't seem like these newer generations are as interested in the drinking part of socialization, where they're
Yep.
doing more like texting and gaming and I could be wrong. My kids are not in college yet, but it just seems like there's a lot less like let's go party, let's go have like 10 beers together and rock out.
Yep.
Doesn't seem like that exists anymore. Which again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that just changes the way guys like you and I have to think about our jobs.
Yeah, like I'll say for us, like our main space from a hospitality standpoint, I would say probably 2017, 18, even into 19, we would get this very young late night crowd, and then kind of COVID hit, and that's gone. So I mean, we're our sweet spot is 4 to 8, and there's still some stragglers from 9 to 10, but we're definitely not getting young kids who want to come out and kind of party like they did maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So
Yeah, it's changing the way that we do parties at the pub. It's changing the way that we plan music. Food is the big driver at
yep.
the pub now. And like you said, our hours our peak hours are very predictable. And honestly, yeah, I think there was just the ability for people to spend because cost of living is higher. That's changing some things too. In how frequent it happens. Like the beer garden is something that we built a couple of years ago that's across the street from the pub now, which works great for overflow. And we definitely see sort of a weekend party crowd, but like stuff shuts down at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the
Yep.
summer.
Yep.
And then the pub in the wintertime dies at like 8 p.m. I mean, it's crazy different
What?
from when I grew up working in bar restaurant. We
Yeah.
wouldn't get out till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. When did you start to see that early shift happen? Like in the summer up at Bel Air?
Honestly, I think a lot of stuff started happening post COVID.
Yeah.
But our operation we never really stayed open past midnight. In our kitchen, I think in summer hours, we would keep open till 10. And so you'd have like that 10 to midnight sort of like wind down window. But it's
Yeah.
more apparent now, especially through the weekday.
Yep.
And of course, Bel Air isn't really in a major metropolis where you have like our median age in Bel Air is probably like 65. So
Yeah.
there isn't a lot of young kids to hang out and party with anyway.
Well, my neighbor from Cincinnati, who's right next to my house here, has a home up there. He's about 65, and he's at your place all the damn time. He doesn't even drink beer anymore. He just loves the atmosphere. So
Yeah.
yeah. But
And that's awesome too, And so you think about that being part of the market that's shifting, and it's just kind of stuff that we're trying to pay more attention to.
yeah, exactly. So before I get off this topic, I have the Sage 21-year vet here. I kind of asked you about how you stay youthful and still get as enthusiastic as you do about the brewery. So two pieces of advice. The first one, so aimed at a guy like me or anyone who's been in the industry 5 to 10 years, where we've been 11 years. What advice do you have in terms of maintaining longevity, staying relevant, um, and operating a business in this climate?
Man, that's well, I'll tell you what I would do. I'll tell you just what I do. Um, One, I still lean into things that excite me personally,
Yep.
longevity wise. Sorry, what was the second half of that question?
Um, yeah, just what advice would you have for someone operating a business and staying as energetic, enthusiastic about it as you have?
Listen to your heart, eh? Um,
Listen to your heart.
so I don't know if anybody watches Mystery Science Theater 3000, but the Final Sacrifice episode, the episode there. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, we got into this because it's something that we believed in, it's something we were passionate about, and so you gotta continue to find things that drive your passion and your interest, because that's where the truest form of authenticity and awesomeness is going to come from. And then you do have to pay attention. Again, this is something that I've always just struggled with because I've had such a great team around me, but you have to continue to watch how things are happening around you and in your space. But honestly, I feel like the passion, the drive, all the stuff from the heart is really what ends up being the guiding light for so many things.
Yep.
Like that's like the beacon.
Yeah. What about for, and I'm sure you get people reaching out all the time. Hey, I'm thinking about starting a brewery. What advice do you give those people? Besides,
Well,
besides don't.
I usually have just a lot more questions because it's like, well, why first, right? Because starting a brewery sounds like really cool thing to do if it's just a cool thing to do. But if you're excited about starting a brewery because um, like just hypothetically, let's say like the person says, well, and this is really just feeding off my own story, right? But there's this empty building in this small town, and I feel like I can breathe life into it because I guess my first question I ask them is like, do you plan on distributing? Um, because I honestly feel like a great brew pub in any
Yep.
community is so important. And I'm like, if I were to do it all over again, I probably, you know, I would rethink how I would have done distribution. Although there's a blessing and a curse there, but the fact is, the pub over time is just this great place. It's the heartbeat of any community where if you've got great food, great people, great value, consistency, these are the kind of places that really bond a community.
Yep.
And as a fan of beer history and American history, Americans have been, um, you know, shaping the world they want to live in over a pint of ale in a pub in some place in
Yep.
North America. And I think that's really cool. Like that beer has this ability to connect people albeit their differences, but a way to just bond and like talk about how they want or what they need their community to be and look like. So I'm always a huge fan of people who are like, yeah, I just want to have this pub and it's, I want to fill this void in my community. If it's, I think owning a brewery is cool. I dissuade people from that, or I try to understand what their goals are. If it's a packaging and distributing, and like what's their market like? Is there a void? And really just share all of my hindsight, quote unquote hindsights. If I had to do it over again, like, these are the things that I wish somebody would have told me about.
What are a few of those things, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I touched on distribution.
Yep.
Touched on the market a little bit. Like, are you in a, would it be in a metropolis? What would your competition be? What's the demographic of your community? Is there access to nature? Like, what's your end goal? Is this something you're going to pump and dump, or is this going to be a legacy thing that you want to live on for multiple generations? Because I really feel like purpose is where the long game is.
Yep.
And so I would certainly spend more time trying to talk to people who are like, I want to invest in a community that I believe in. I want this thing to last for my grandchildren's, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's the kind of stuff that has more meaning and deserves more attention than the quick pump and dump.
Yep. Are you kind of mentioned, like, right, all through history, beer as this communal gathering beverage and spaces around that. Are you worried about the erosion of that, or do you think we're kind of just seeing small blips, or do you think there's a general shift that's larger that you think we're seeing?
I don't really know for sure. I'm inclined to think like everything's cyclical. Like,
Yep.
this will be sort of maybe we're seeing a generation gap in quote unquote dryness, right? So we
Yep.
might we might see that happen, but beer is one of the oldest things that humans know, and I have a lot of confidence in that. So I'd like to think that it's going to be around for a while. It just might be, we've had prohibition and then it went away, and now we're having a different kind of sort of version of dry, and I'm assuming it will go away or rebound with generations to come.
Yep. Cool. Last question before we go to break, and sorry, I'm going to revisit one thing.
No, please.
This question is very much projecting, so I'll give the background here. From what I know of you and your creative spirit, it is massive, and you are extremely creative. I think I have a small shred of the creative passion that you do, but I will tell you that I know that I drive my team crazy sometimes. It is just like, holy shit, he's here, he wants to do this idea. Last week it was this week it was this. And as I was thinking about interviewing you, I was like, holy shit, if I drive my team crazy, Joe's got to drive his team bonkers, or Joe's just a much better communicator than I am. So I'm curious, do you drive your team crazy, and how do you manage that?
There's no doubt, I'm sure I drive my crazy. And I don't, there's been a few times where they will, I mean, in a pragmatic way, and I'll remember this with the very first time we did the Imperial Beer Series in 2007, where I was like, we're going to label and hand sign all these hang tags and do all this stuff. And I'm like, it's going to be done by like the end of the day. And then Tony, back then, he was like our first brew. And he was like, I don't want to burst your bubble here, but there's just no way it's physically possible. I've done the math, and for us to do all these hang tags and labels, it's going to take us like 14 weeks. How about we just pick like 7 cases of each and do that? And so when somebody like that puts it into perspective, it's like, okay, like I'm also like, I'll admit that I'm rational. I'm not just crazy.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that makes sense. And he was right. So I guess the point being is that like Leah, also my wife, will say like she's the person that just drags behind me like an anchor on a hot air balloon, like just trying to keep it somewhere close to the earth.
What a lovingly thing to say about your wife. She's the anchor behind me. I know what
Yeah,
you mean, though. I know what you mean. Yeah.
just getting behind this hot air balloon that's trying to float away. But I really, it's funny because I was walking through the facility with a tape measure yesterday, and everybody knows when I have a tape measure out, like I'm working on
Oh,
something,
fuck.
right? Yeah, like what's going on now? But I think my team does a great job, especially leadership like Scott, Tony, and Leo are very helpful to say like it's okay to say no to Joe. Like he's gonna throw out 100 things and hopefully get maybe five.
Yep.
Um, and the longer you've worked with me, the more that you get to know that, and so
Yeah.
over time, like there's like I think people are just kind of used to the kind of projects that we do, and I usually just kind of whittle it down to like, all right, I'll process it in my head for probably weeks at a time before I can figure out a way to pitch it because some of the stuff that's unconventional, which helps make a place or a project successful, takes some time to massage into the
Yeah.
mindset of people. But like in your heart, like this is a banger. Like I know
Yep.
it's gonna take a hard time for me to like sow this seed. But if I can get like one person to buy in and then they get it and I can just work my way through. And we've got a couple projects like that happening right now, which is exciting. And it was 5 steps forward, 10 steps back, and
Yep.
we've been doing this for the last 4 months, and there's definitely a lot of compromise. Um, but I would say, like, as equally as I can be frustrating, I think it's also part of the excitement of working
Yeah.
with me and/or at Shorts. Is like it's kind of intriguing and frustrating and maddening, but you kind of feel like something exciting is going to happen.
Never a dull day.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's probably going to be fun and cool and
Yeah. Well, it's such a part of your brand ethos too, right? You use the word unconventional, and when I think of Shorts, that's what I think about. Like you just kind of never know what to expect. It's the Willy Wonka, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's cool.
Like the schnozberries actually taste like schnozberries.
Yeah, 100%. Is there any projects you mentioned a few of those projects? Any that you comfortable sharing that are baked enough or
Not quite yet,
yeah,
but this year, probably second or third quarter. I guess we're in the second quarter now, but probably midsummer we'll be making more announcements on some exciting projects. Yeah,
hell yeah, can't wait.
yeah, and that feels good too from you know um, just a creative and operational standpoint to feel like super stoked about something. And for whatever reason, like the harder it is, the more exciting it is. So
Yep. Yep. No pain, no gain. Love it. Awesome. Well, we're going to take a short break for this message and then come right back for more of this conversation with Joe Short of Short's Brewing.
Malteurop Malting Company is proud to introduce the new Malta Two-Row, grown and malted in Mexico. At Malteurop, they're proud to be growing and producing malt in Mexico. They work hand in hand with Mexican farmers to ensure the best barley, which is then processed in their own local Mexico malt house to create this exceptional Malta Two-Row. This product is a superior quality two-row base malt and provides consistent quality designed to satisfy your desire to brew a true Mexican lager. Contact Malt Europe today and visit malteuropemaltingco.com. It doesn't matter what size your brewery is, 1 barrel or 1,000. Maybe you're in planning. Whatever the size or situation, Ollie has helped brewers save money and become more efficient. The best part? When you're talking to the Ollie team, you're talking to people who have worked in the industry. Learn more about Ollie and how it's transforming breweries everywhere at getollie.com/pod. That's getollie.com/pod.
All right. Welcome back. All right, Joe, I'm going to hit you with kind of a series of, we'll call them quick fire, but we can certainly go deep if we want. What would a Shorts customer / guest say about their experience with your beer, your brands?
Oh man, it's interesting because I see all the like the Yelp reviews and stuff, so it's all over the place. But I like to
You're
think,
playing a really dangerous game looking at Yelp reviews.
I know,
I know
right?
you have to. You have to.
That feedback is important, and you
Yeah.
have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yep.
But I'd like to think that one, their experience, they like the environment, the facility is clean, the people are charismatic and very helpful, informative. They enjoyed their meal. They had a delicious, high quality crafted beverage, and they got a great value, and they get it every time.
Yep. Are you
Whether
worried?
we deliver that 100% of the time, yeah, it's tricky. But I like to say that we're in the B plus, A minus range for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Is the value equation something you're worried about with some of the instability right now?
Well, stuff's not getting any less expensive,
Yep.
which is making it more challenging for just the recreational fun spending. I know because Leah buys all the food for the pub, and it can be a hard pill to swallow when you're talking about how much you need to charge for a sandwich. But
Yep.
that's where the value thing comes in. It's like we really pride ourselves on value and consistency. So even if you're paying, X amount for the sandwich, it's going to be worth it, or at least market rate worth it, right?
Yep.
I could have a similar priced meal somewhere else, but it might not be worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a concern that we're talking about more and more.
Yeah.
But if you can make it quality and consistent, so maybe if the general consumer goes out or used to go out 3 or 4 times a week and now they only go out twice, maybe you're the spot that gets 1 or 2 visits because they can count on you and your brand and your experience to deliver what they're expecting.
Yep. Absolutely. What would a Shorts employee say about their experience with Shorts?
I'd like to think that we're a fun place to work. We're a fair employer. We have high standards, and we pay above average, and we provide great benefits. There's a lot of flexibility. And they get the surprise attacks of whatever might happen depending on what department you're in, but
Yeah.
no shortage of challenges for sure, in any role, but I would like to think it's a place that people would always remember as having a great time and being an important part of their life, or some place they'd love to refer a friend to. The place that's really got a lot of integrity. Leadership is a hands-on group, and
Yep.
we like to set the stage, and it's not that you're working for somebody that you never see.
Yeah.
We're involved and we care.
Yeah.
It's a big part.
I mean, to me, it absolutely comes through with any of your employees I've interacted. Whether I've had 2 cool experiences: a summer experience at the pub and a winter experience at the pub, which were both amazing. We talk about a mad tree, warm and welcoming, and I absolutely feel that when I've been in your space. And then obviously, to come up and visit with you guys and get behind the scenes in production and talk with Tony and meet your wife. Yeah, it's a really, really cool culture, and it's very warm, which is cool.
Yeah, like a
So,
family operation. It's like you're working for a mom and pop operation.
yep, yep. What would your kids say about shorts? You have two sons, correct?
Yeah, Simon and Elmer.
And they are in. Remind me of ages.
Elmer's 13 and Simon's 15. So middle schooler
Okay.
and a high schooler.
Yep. What would they say about shorts?
They're funny because you know, they've grown up to be just exposed to all of the shenanigans. So everything in life is really underwhelming to them because like they just get the short spree experience. But I think the one thing that they will say is that they know me and Leah work really hard, and the brewery consumes a lot of our time, and they're becoming more and more integrated in it. And I think, um, it's just part of their life. Like, I'll go to the pole barn after picking up Elmer from Strings, his music program, and
Yep.
he'll go behind the bar and pour himself a soda and grab a bag of chips, and we'll sit at the bar and I'll have a beer and he'll play this dice game and chat with Taylor who's bartending or whatever. And Simon's making friends at the pub, working in the kitchen, making pizzas with um, the kitchen crew, and they're talking about cars and movies and video games. And
Wild.
yeah, I just think it's just so much part of their life, and it's something I think they're proud of too. Because when their friends come over, they're like, "Hey, come back here. I can take you down to the brewery, or I can show you how to drive a forklift." Or I think it's a real big point of pride for them, I guess, would be the best way to answer that question.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, I want to shift. I'm going to ask one more. What would they say about shorts question? But I'm going to shift into. I've always been really fascinated with how music weaves into your brewery. It's a passion of mine. I know it's a passion of yours. Um, so first off, for a lot of listeners who might not know, tell us about Braxton Hicks and the Contractions.
Oh man. So disclaimers that I'm not a very good musician,
Oh, that's bullshit.
but I surround myself with people who actually know what they're doing. I can manage a handful of chords. Writing is my strength. So
It is absolutely your strength, and I would say stage presence.
yes, I'm a showman of sorts when the time calls. But Braxton Hicks and the Contractions actually goes back to um, when Leah was pregnant with our first son Simon. I learned about these things called Braxton Hicks contractions. I was like, that just doesn't even remotely sound connected to procreation. It sounds like a really kick-ass band name. And I've had this friend, Seth Bernard, who's actually a great professional musician, and he would always encourage me to write more and sing more. And so one year he looped me in to do some stuff at his music festival, but he would always kind of come and help me with videos and help play. And so that was kind of the birth of like, it was like Billy Braxton and Dick Hicks, and then it changed to Hank Hicks because we just had to keep modifying it. And then so it was just him and I doing a couple songs, and these are songs that I'd like kind of had some chords for, but like rewrote all the words for to make work for beer. And then I had another buddy who I learned through a friend of a friend who played drums, and um, he's actually a bicycle builder here in Michigan. And I was like, hey, you want to like get together and like jam sometime? And he was like, this is the best thing I've heard all day. And his brother is actually a great musician too. So the four of us teamed up and we actually created Braxton Hicks 1.0, and carved out a half a dozen songs or something. And then of course, as bands go, seemingly everybody kind of moves around and gets busy with stuff. So I had to keep kind of casting my net for people who could help play, who could help make Billy
Yep.
Braxton viable. But um, now fast forward, like literally 12, 15 years later, we've I've got a kind of a quote unquote band that is pretty reliable. People that I've met through, my kids' soccer, my water skiing buddies. Elmer started actually playing
That's what
music.
I was gonna ask you about that. That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's actually the part that really for me kind of keeps it going. So Elmer
Yep.
started the strings program in elementary. Was it elementary school? Yeah, I think so. And then so he plays the double bass, which is the big stand up.
Yep. Yep. My son
And he
plays that as
started,
well.
oh, sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then we got him an electric bass. So for him, he's in orchestra, strings, jazz, band, and then Braxton Hicks. So
Holy moly.
he just started his own band called Shortstop. So last year, this is actually the almost a year to the month where Elmer became a full time bass player for Braxton Hicks. He was only he started last year with just like 3 songs, and then the guy who was actually playing bass for us was Elmer's private bass teacher, and he couldn't make the Friday show that we do at the pub, which is like the pre-party for the anniversary party.
Yep.
It was like, hey Elmer, think you can play the rest of these songs? He's like, just like so confident. He was like, yeah, I can probably figure it out. And so Mike, who was playing bass for us, also plays a lot of other instruments. So he now is the fiddle player in our band. So it's Elmer on bass, and everybody has alter egos, right? So Elmer is how we do it. And then Mike, who was the former bass player, now fiddle player, is Luke Thigh-Walker. And then Gene, he's our drummer, but he's Kenneth Kegel, keeping it tight on the drums. And then we've got 3 Hickses because Seth got busy, and he's the original Hank Hicks. So I recruited Aaron Dye from Stone Folk, who plays Frank Hicks, and then my water ski buddy Eric also plays electric guitar, and he's Dick Hicks. So this year we're actually going to do the pre-party with all the Hickses. So it's going to be a Hickses family reunion.
Is that what you're calling it? A Hicks family reunion?
Yeah, for the Friday show, and then
Yeah.
It'll just be all of us minus Seth on the Saturday show.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
What's the biggest hit?
I think they're all bangers,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, pun intended. But Superfluid was definitely the rock. Well, you guys were in that one.
Yeah, I know Superfluid.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. You have a cameo in that
video. I do.
We finally got the prolonged enjoyment video out, which was great. But to me, I think they're all just fun. They're just all fun to play, and they all tell a great story. And I mean, there's nothing cooler than just hanging out with, Elmer on stage. So that's just been a fun parental highlight for me.
Yeah, I got to. I don't think I told you this. I put out an album late last year. It's mostly me, but I can't play drums. So my son's a drummer and bass player, and I had him come into the studio and do like 3 or 4 songs on it. It was a lot of fun. I'll shoot it over to you when we're done talking.
Yeah, please do. It sounds awesome.
So, yeah. All right. So tell us who's Billy Braxton? Like,
yeah, Billy Braxton. He's got a kind of a swagger about him. He leans into the country western, sort of alt pop country rock. Likes to talk about proactive procreation, getting it on, and being a good human out there. And it's actually quite a big part of our shtick, especially when Hank can join, because his stage banter is very complimentary to Billy's. And our scapegoat is like, if you're not happy with the music, you will be happy with the entertainment,
Yeah.
because it's really just kind of a fun back and forth. And we like to really just sow the seed of the general, like, love your neighbor, love your community, be a good person, um, help make your community better,
Yep.
drink beer, make love, all that stuff.
I was going to ask you what would Billy Braxton say about shorts, but I think you just answered it. Or do you have more of an answer?
Yeah, Billy Braxton's just a thirsty man, and he just needs more time to write songs about all those delicious beers.
I'm going to shift a little bit. I want to stay in music though. This this love and passion with Ween, I think is always really fascinating. With obviously the band Ween. How did that come about? That whole relationship kind of develop?
Oh man. So I discovered Ween as a college kid, and just really fell in love with their music. And of course, it carried me through, building the pub. And like, when I was brewing a lot those first few years, I would just crank the Ween, and I'd love to sing along with it. And I was like, if these guys ever go back on tour, because I think they were in like a break or something.
Yeah.
And then I found out they were going to go back on tour. And so this was like 2005. And Lee and I actually went and hit a trifecta of shows out east. It was New York, DC, and Atlantic City. And got to experience them live, because for some reason, I don't know if they were like broken up or taking a break. Anyway, it was just, it was unclear to me, but I was like, we need to go, because this might not ever happen
Yep.
again. And then on our way home from this uh, music tour, we're starting to think about, like, it was in the spring, so we were like, oh, we need to start thinking about like what the menu's going to be this summer. And Leah started writing stuff down, and she's like, I don't really know what to call like the turkey sandwich or the whitefish pate. And I was like, well, I've seen what a whitefish looks like, or a smoked whitefish, and it's golden, but we should call it the golden eel. It's one of the songs.
Yeah.
And then she's like, the egg salad sandwich. I was like, well, the Grove has these lyrics called "Bring it to a boil, simmer low." So if you're making hard-boiled eggs, you got to boil stuff. Or like, for our appetizer, which is the Exactly Where I'm At. That was the first song they played at every show that we went to. So that was
Yeah.
like, that's how you start, right? For starters, we're going to play Exactly Where I'm At. So that was the basil pesto artichoke dip. And so we just kept riffing on
Yeah.
all the stuff that we wanted to make, and then figuring out a way to assign a Ween song to it. And even way back then, the very first Ween menu was like, if you identified the song that was playing in the pub while you were eating it, you got like a discount on your meal. It probably only lasted like one day, but and then Ween kind of broke up for real years later. And this was right before our 10-year anniversary. But I found out Mickey, aka Dean Ween,
Yep.
he was doing these fishing charters. And so, my team is awesome, and I think they were thinking a lot about me. But we booked a fishing charter, and long story short, had this crazy fishing experience with Dean Ween. And
Was he
afterward,
like teaching people how to fish, or like your guide, or was
like,
he just
yeah,
okay?
like he's
Yeah.
like the guide. Like, so
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
his
Gotcha.
boat, his crew, his
Yeah.
fishing poles, like all the stuff. And so we go fishing with Dean, and then afterward we're having lunch in a bar, and we I just really just tried to befriend him and tell him how important the band Ween was to me. And I could tell, like, he was heartbroken, the fact that Ween was broken up. And so I established a rapport with him, and then I was able to get at least Dean Ween to come play with a Ween cover band as his backline.
Okay.
And so there was two windows that this kind of worked out. So the first phase was like this Dean Ween show where we're going to do at the pub, inside the pub. It was our first and only ever ticketed event. And Dean Ween was backed by the Brownouts, Ween cover band from Chicago.
Yep.
And then after that experience, we kind of sowed the seed for the 10-year anniversary, where we would play the big stage across the street. And I remember before I took Mickey to the airport, we stopped at like Pearl's, which is our local New Orleans style kitchen here.
Love Pearl's.
Yeah. Staple for sure.
Yep.
And Tyler Glaze, our COO, I still don't know if he would admit this to this day, but this is my presumption, is that we were carrying a bunch of beer or something out to the car for Mickey. And I feel like he had words with Mickey and was like, you need to come play the 10-year anniversary for Joe. Like, he fucking loves you guys. And and then Mickey and I had been in contact for text for a while. And then, of course, it was funny because when I finally got him to come do the 10-year, I got probably one of the biggest compliments I think I've ever gotten from a guy like Mickey. So the night before he comes in for the anniversary party, God, maybe I have the sequence wrong. Maybe he played the 10-year and then a show afterward. But anyway, he shows up in Bel Air and he's humoring me. He's like, he threw out this number that we would have to pay him to come play. And I was like, yeah, we'll pay it. And he's like, oh shit, I didn't think you guys would do that. So now I have to come play. And when I bring him into Bel Air on the Friday night, like, we got the tents going up, and like this small fucking town of Bel Air is just lit with activity. Like, I'm chatting with the chief of police, and he's like, Jesus Christ. He's like, it's like, he's like, first I thought this was going to be like underneath a tarp off the side of a building somewhere. And you've got this giant structure and stage and all the stuff going up. And he's like, you should like, you're going to be like a congressman or something someday. Like, just the way you are, like, and I was like, huh.
Wait, that was the biggest compliment?
Yeah, it was just like, thought I had the skills of a congressman. I don't know what it means, but I was just like, huh.
Oh, I love that.
Pretty cool compliment. I'll take it.
Yeah.
So anyway, however this mashes together for the listeners here is that we've had a lot of conversation with Mickey more so than Aaron, who is Gene Ween. Although we were able to catch Gene Ween at a show, and this is pre-reunion. So now actually Ween is back together, but they were back together, but now they're not, or they're at least taking some time off because it sounds like Mickey needed a break.
Yeah.
Anyway, our infatuation with Ween goes deep, obviously enough to inspire the menu names and be constantly played in the pub, and obviously huge, deep memories of, me brewing to Ween, me hanging out with Dean and all the guys from the Brownouts, and then actually bringing something just so unprecedented to the village of Bel Air is awesome. Like, I would love to, like, before I die, it'd be sweet to like just get the whole band there. So, and honestly, occasionally I will just, try to text or communicate to the fact that, like, I've sent them menus, and I think even Claude Coleman was like, I really want to try Where'd the Cheese Go? But I was like, yeah, you guys should just come, like, experience our menu, experience the magic that your music put into food that makes this community so coveted and loved. you really should witness it for yourself. And if you're here and interested and have your instruments and want to play, that wouldn't hurt my feelings.
I bet you could find an opening band too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know a couple guys out there.
Drinking beer on the corner.
Yeah, I think that's what Billy Braxton needs to focus on next is a few Ween songs.
Yeah.
Finding time to practice and play is the hard part.
Very hard.
And that's one of the reasons why I keep booking us for shows is to just
force it. Yeah.
Like cramming for an exam every time.
Yep. So last music question. Thirst Mutilator. What's the story? What's the story there?
Well, it's complicated. Thirst Mutilators actually started as a beer, and it was kind of born. Some of the ideas and parts of this were born from the world, the movie that talks about the world we're living in now, which is Idiocracy.
Mm-hmm.
How they had, Thirst Mutilator. Anyway, we developed a beer called Thirst Mutilator and had a really fun label with a unicorn with chainsaw arms to mutilate your thirst with. It was like a Munich.
Obviously.
A Munich something. And then, so our sales director, Carrie Lynch, knows so many people and has so many connections. And
Carrie's how we got hooked up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So, somehow we get involved with this conversation with Billy Strings, who used to play the pub a lot on a regular basis back in the day. And, with sort of an NA vibe, but not able to really do like THC stuff or NA beer at the time, we started talking about hop water. And then, long story short, Thirst Mutilator was born with hop water with Billy Strings, and now it's got two flavors, and it's seeing a pretty good reach. And that was kind of touching back in the beginning part of our conversation about sort of different drinking cultures that Thirst Mutilators vibing with a lot of kids, a lot of California sober, and just it's filling that window, which was encouraging. And of course, having Billy Strings be a huge fan of it and want to participate with the development of that project and that product. We're excited because it's still very new yet, but we're encouraged with the results that we're seeing. I mean, all of my kids' friends are stoked about it. They really enjoy it. Thirst Mutilator, they're excited to come to our house because there's just no shortage of it.
Yep.
Even with the NA beer we have on tap, Thirst Mutilator is just so handy to have, and it tastes really good, obviously. And
yep, absolutely.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Are you still in contact with Billy?
So Billy's got a couple layers between him and me.
Things have changed a little bit over the years.
Yeah, things have changed a little bit with, his rise to fame. But we connect through like when we're trying to, develop like new flavors or something. We'll deliver some stuff that gets to Billy, and then Billy's feedback gets to us. But yeah, we're excited and of course super proud to be associated with Billy and have the history that we do and have the product partnership that we're sharing, which is nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Just a few questions left. I got to ask this one. I know it's cheesy, but I'm always interested in the answer. If you could only drink one beer for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Man, well, as the beginning intro said, I'm a thirsty man, Brady. So Huma is our IPA. It's the beer that Bill Short Shorts. That's the beer I'm drinking right now. It would probably be it, but yeah, I just have so many favorites. Um, but they're not all year-round beers, so I guess Huma would be the one. Yeah.
That's a great desert island beer or only beer. It's awesome.
And I will say, when we talked about projects earlier, Huma is part of my project excitement that I'm working on that will soon be announced, hopefully in a couple months. So,
Yep. And is the full name? Try to remember if I have this right. Is it Humalupalicious?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
got
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
As in Humulus lupulus.
Yeah. 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 It's got that Willy Wonka feel to it. Name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse.
It's a mouthful. That's
It,
a
it really is. That's why we went with Huma. Just
yeah.
call it.
Let's make the bar call a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Our IPA psychopathy, and gosh, it's still a struggle. So we kind of been trying to shorten it to psych, because even people saying psychopathy, like there's just no way. So
Yeah, especially with IPAs, it's a
yeah,
lot of syllables in there.
absolutely. Um, what would Joe Short be doing if he wasn't running a brewery?
Man, I tell you what I do right now. I throw football over the mountains and be sitting in a hot tub with my soulmate. Uh, so every time we go on a trip in our Sprinter van, we talk about like not owning and operating a brewery and just being van life bums.
Yep.
I think that's what I would do. Although I'd still have to make it so I could water ski. But I think for Leah and I, as we're eyeing the empty nester window.
Yep.
Good food, good hikes, and traveling.
Where would you travel? Just anywhere?
Yeah, all over, all
Yeah.
over. I mean, there's so much even in the U.S. and North America and Canada,
Yep.
And not even to mention the rest of the world. But like, man, we have a cool planet, man. Like
Yep.
there's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see and explore a lot of it.
Yep. All right. So if Joe Short could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Oh man, the question happens, doesn't it? um, hopefully, just to set an example of like just don't be afraid to follow your dreams.
Yeah.
And not be afraid to like go against the grain, go against conventional wisdom, and make it work if you believe in it enough.
You and Billy Braxton have that in common for sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of similarities.
Well, amazing. I'm going to wrap it up there. Any last words, Joe?
Life is short. Drink it while you're here.
Love it. Joe will be back on the next episode of the show as the host, having a conversation with a brewer of his choosing. That will be in the air in 2 weeks, so make sure you tune in for that. As a reminder, visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media to support journalism in the beer space. Check out allaboutbeer.com/support. I'm Brady Duncan of Mad Tree Brewery. Sorry. Thank you for listening to the Brewer to Brewer podcast. Cheers.
This episode was proudly brought to you by Ollie, the brewery software that could save you massive amounts of money and time, just like we did for hundreds of brewers like you in 2024. Make 2025 the year you switch to Ollie and discover why it's the fastest growing brewery software trusted by thousands of brewers across the globe. Visit getollie.com/pod to learn more. One more time, that's getollie, OLLIE.com/pod. Cheers. Malteurop Malting Company is proud to introduce the new Malteurop, grown and malted in Mexico. At Malteurop, they're proud to be growing and producing malt in Mexico. They work hand in hand with Mexican farmers to ensure the best barley, which is then processed in their own local Mexico malt house to create this exceptional Malteurop. This product is a superior quality two-row base malt and provides consistent quality designed to satisfy your desire to brew a true Mexican lager. Contact Malt Europe today and visit malteuropemaltingco.com.